to our class, we always like to start off with giving, because how we give, that's how Hashem will give to us. So please give generously, so Hashem will give you generously. We always like to start off the class with blessings. So I want to ask for a special refuah shalema, speedy recovery for shlucha that tunes into this class, that I got to know through this class, that could really use healing. Her name is Devorah Leah Bat Yafa Liba. If everyone could say amen. She watches this class, and we can't wait to celebrate with you your healing party very, very soon. I would also like to ask for a special refuah shalema for Sarah Bat Ruchama Bluma Rivka, a friend of mine, and my neighbor that I grew up with, Razel Bat Hadas, Razi Melamed. We should see you so soon. Again, very soon, healthy. And I do this class in merit of my dear grandmother, Rivka Dina Bas Yosef Yuda. I hope I make you proud. Before we start with the guest speaker, I would like to share 2 short clips of the Rebbetzin. It's the 35th anniversary year of passing this year. When a tzaddik dies, when anyone dies, they're still here in a different form, and we keep them alive through sharing stories and their legacy. And she left such a huge one. So I'm just going to share with you 2 short clips just to see a little glimpse of who Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka is before we start.
I'm very, very sorry for your tragedy. Please accept my condolences, my sincere condolences. I hear she was a wonderful, wonderful woman, your wife.
My opinion is underestimated.
When you speak about the sacrifice of the Rebbetzin, you're dealing with a person who's childless. We'd probably expect that this would compensate for the fact that she didn't have children. She at least had the company of her husband. Yet we see that she really surrendered that exclusivity to the world. She understood why the world needs the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
Rebbetzin passed away on Chaf Bei Shvat. I think what a lot of people do not know is that actually on Chaf Shvat, Chaf, the 20th day, Monday, she had a medical issue that her doctor wanted her to go to the hospital for a test.
God bless you, Rabbi Schneerson. Yeah. Remember, I used to work for Mr. Schneerson. Just God bless you, really good.
Yeah,
remember me,
Faye?
Bless you.
Faye. And healthy years and happy years.
Thanks a lot, and God bless you real good.
Yeah, that's it.
You want to give me enough?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, special thanks for your services.
Thank you very much. I just miss Miss Schneerson so much. She was such a friend.
Yeah.
I miss her so much. May God bless you. You're such a sweet man.
God bless you. I have always good news to report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're just going to share the other video with Mrs. Sternberg. I just wanted you to see her in the video with this amazing woman that helped Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka. So please look at the screen. You're going to see the rest of the video.
A medical issue that her doctor wanted her to go to the hospital for a test. And she was very emphatic that she's not going to the hospital and she's not going today. And you cannot tell my husband anything today because tonight is going to be a Yechidus for the guest that came for Yud Shvat. And if he knows that I'm not well, he'll cancel the Yechidus, and what a disappointment it would be for them. Tuesday night, she passed away.
With regard to the Sfarim case, there were very valuable Sfarim and manuscripts. There were volumes missing. The defendant said he has a right to it, that it's all family possession. And I still remember the most dramatic moment in the depositions, and maybe the most dramatic moment in the whole proceeding, when they made the mistake of asking the Rebbetzin about, didn't your father own things? What did he have personally? What was it, personal possessions?
Die Militärs hat sich geentfert und hat gesagt, zu der Gangen hat gefehlt auf Israel. Als der Tate hier, der Rebbe, gehört zusammen mit seinen Schworen und Holen Jungen, gehört zu Chassidus und kein Jokum, als ist geworden Echen. In der Linie, was die Nichtjuden haben gerechnet, hat das gehört zu Selbstsagen.
So I just want to finish off the story with Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka. She didn't want to go to the hospital because she felt that the people that were coming in for Yud Shvat, for their audience, their private audiences that waited months and weeks and years for this special private audience with the Rebbe. So she decided she's not going to tell the Rebbe about that she needed to go to the hospital. And a couple of days later, she passed away, and she sacrificed her health for us, for people to be able to benefit from her dear husband, who was the Rebbe, which is beyond. The reason why I chose tonight Chana Lipsker to speak was because she and her family had a connection to the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, and not many people got to know the Rebbetzin in such a, in a way that, you can see her. She was a very, very private person, and she didn't want any fame. So Chana was very blessed to know the Rebbetzin, and she's going to share with us her stories and journeys with us. So if you could unmute yourself and you'll let us know where she's a Rebbetzin, you'll tell us where you're the shlucha of as well.
Thank you, Chaya. Tremendous honor to be here tonight. I've been to the Wednesday night Zoom session many times, and I've really been enjoying them whenever I can get on. So thank you, Chaya, for your devotion and your hard work in keeping these classes going and making sure that each one is exciting as well as inspirational. So Chaya asked me to talk about the Rebbetzin and also about our shlichus in Reading, Pennsylvania. If you ask me where it is, middle of nowhere. I've just returned from the annual conference of Shluchos, where every year on the Rebetzin's yard site, which happened to be this past Monday, thousands of Shluchos and our kids with a simultaneous program get together for a weekend of inspiration, of support, of learning, and just gaining strength from some of the most powerful women in the world, each one representing another Jewish community somewhere across the globe, each one following in the footsteps of our Rebbetzin, in being there for others, in giving of ourselves, and acting with love and kindness to those who we encounter on a daily basis. Rebbetzin was extremely modest, and she chose to remain out of the limelight. So very little was known about her life until after her passing, when we learned of the tremendous impact that she had on those who had the zechut, the great merit to have met her. Although as the Rebbe's wife, she was at the center of the world's attention, amazingly, she succeeded to continue her work privately without the honor and glory that she could have received just for being the Rebbetzin. She at least had, as my father said before, she at least had the company of her husband, and my father just spoke on the video. And yet we see that she really surrendered that exclusivity that she had with the Rebbe. She surrendered it to us. She understood why we all needed the Rebbe. I grew up in London with my parents making it a priority to bring me and my siblings to New York quite a few times throughout our youth, just to be in the presence of the Rebbe. And I'm so grateful for my parents' great insight, a tremendous gift to all of us. We were also extremely fortunate and had the great zechut to be one of the few families, as Chaya mentioned, who would visit with the Rebbetzin. We grew up knowing that it was a great honor and privilege to visit the Rebbetzin, that it wasn't just something that people did. We were taught to treat these visits exactly like Yechidus, a personal audience with the Rebbe. We would dress in our best clothes, we would plan our words carefully, and of course we had to be on our best behavior. So how did my family have this great merit to come and visit with Rebbetzin on countless occasions? The Rebbe had been very involved in the engagement of my parents, and my grandparents, Zalman and Rosalind Jaffe from England, had hoped that the Rebbe would be Mitzad Kedushin, that he would officiate at the wedding. But the Rebbe was no longer officiating at all weddings as he did in the past. Nevertheless, my grandparents changed the plans from holding the wedding in England to holding it in New York, in the hopes that the Rebbe would agree to officiate. Several days before the wedding, the Rebbe did confirm that indeed he would. My grandfather had heard that the Rebbetzin really appreciated roses, and every time he visited New York for a Yom Tov or another occasion, he would send a beautiful arrangement to the Rebbetzin. Now, he mentioned to the Rebbe at a Yechidus, his personal audience that he had, that it would be only proper to personally invite the Rebbetzin to his daughter's wedding. And the Rebbe replied, "I doubt she'll come, but she knows who you are because you always say it with flowers." Shortly afterwards, my grandparents spoke with the Rebbetzin. She said she would not be coming to the wedding, but she would be very happy to receive them in her home. After this, the Rebbetzin would have my grandparents over each time they visited from the UK. And if any of us kids were lucky enough to be in New York at the same time, we got to visit with them. The Rebbetzin would engage us in conversation, we would sing songs for her, she would nod her head in time to our singing, and when we were done, she would vigorously applaud us. My mother would bring us all, including the baby, whom the Rebbetzin really enjoyed. She would endearingly say, "Come to Dada, come to Auntie." She gave us candies that we would take home. There was always some treat that we could enjoy while in her company, that we would enjoy while in her company. Sometimes sending us to her kitchen to retrieve ice cream from her freezer. My memories of the Rebbetzin, small in stature, always standing gracefully, waiting to greet us from behind her white couches in her living room or by the door to the dining room. I don't remember ever not seeing her radiant and warm smile. Her smile never left her face. This is the image always in my mind, a regal and beautiful woman with a radiant face. And I know I'm saying radiant again, but that's what it was. It was just radiant. She was majestic. She was royalty. Countless stories of the Rebbetzin having quick comebacks to put people at ease in potentially uncomfortable situations, like a story that happened with my father. As a young man, when he was engaged to my mother, my father had the merit to meet the Rebbetzin for the first of many times, along with my mother and grandparents, his future in-laws. Now, my grandparents were very, very English, as in very proper, and as we say in England, were very posh people. You can imagine the nerves accompanying my father as a young man. Well, the Rebbetzin always has a gorgeous table set up. As an aside, the pictures and the videos that we see of the Rebbe's house after the Rebbetzин's passing really don't look like the same house that we remember. There was like a brightness, like a light, a feeling of royal, like a royal feeling to this space, and it simply is not there anymore. The Rebbe and Rebbetzin's home was tastefully furnished in elegance, not showy or overdone in any way, and always set up beautifully. So for this occasion, the Rebbetzin had prepared a lavish spread, and there was a beautiful crystal pitcher filled with red punch, sitting next to some tall crystal cups that had glass straws in them. The Rebbetzin turned to my father and she said, "You have the honor of pouring drinks for everyone, since you're a chassid." As my father was pouring the second cup, he accidentally knocked the straw out of the already filled first cup, and to his horror, bright red punch now covered the pristine white tablecloth. The Rebbetzin, quick as a flash, and with great gusto said, "It's a siman bracha, it's a sign of blessing." She was so excited. My grandfather, who was a very humorous man, said later that the Rebbetzin seemed so delighted that he was tempted to knock over another glass. When my older sister was living in New York, she attended seminary there. She was only 17, and Rebbetzin realized that at such a young age, she would very possibly be homesick. She told her, "You're staying here now, and remember that you have a friend here in the neighborhood." And she reached out to my sister, making many attempts. Remember, 17-year-old girl. She made many attempts at her dorm to try and reach her, and even went so far as to try her at school, where they didn't let her speak to a student until they finally connected. Now, they didn't know that this was the Rebbe's wife calling for the student. My sister, this young 17-year-old girl, was indeed feeling very homesick to be missing our cousin's wedding back in England, and the Rebbetzin lifted her spirits just by showing that she cared. She called up this young girl to make sure that she knew that someone was here with her when she couldn't attend a family simcha back so far away in England. As Mrs. Sternberg said on the video, the doctors had advised, sorry, my phone here, 1 second. Two days before her passing, the Rebbetzin wasn't feeling well. And my sister had actually called her, and she told my sister, no, it's fine, I just have a little cold. But it was much worse than that. The doctor had advised that she should go to the hospital to have a test done, and she didn't want to go. And as Mrs. Sternberg mentioned, she said, the Rebbe has Yechidus tonight for all the guests that have come in at this time of the year. And the doctor had said, let me speak to the Rebbe about it. And she said, no, do not speak to the Rebbe about it, because if he knows that, I need to take a test, I need to go to the hospital, he's going to cancel the Yechidus. And I know how important that is for all the guests who are waiting for this opportunity. She was so selfless. She knew what Yechidus meant, a chassid of the Rebbe. She gave up being treated a whole day so as not to take the Rebbe away from his chassidim. The Rebbetzin stood unwavering at her husband's side, and by extension, dedicated her life to the Rebbe's thousands of followers around the world, giving up so much personally, so we as the Rebbe's chassidim, as the Rebbe's followers, would have the Rebbe with us. She was an unwavering pillar of support to the Rebbe, and by dedicating her life to him, she dedicated herself to all of us as well, to the Rebbe's chassidim. Every single story about the Rebbetzin telling us how she felt for another person, to the extent that the last Friday night before she passed away, Rabbi Beryl Unick was visiting with her, and he would do this very often. I think he would do this every Friday night. And it was an extremely frigid night out. So before he left, the Rebbetzin said, I feel the cold that you're going to feel when you go outside. She hadn't been outside. She was just so sensitive and so caring. Tremendous feelings for others. On another occasion, the Rebbetzin was on her way somewhere, and she found the regular route closed off due to road work, instead continuing on a parallel street. As she was driving down that street, she heard a woman screaming and crying out in Russian. She asked her driver to please turn around so she could find out what was going on. And there was a woman standing on the curb and weeping, while near her, workers were carrying furniture and household items from a house and loading them onto a truck belonging to the county marshal. She asked her driver to park behind the marshal's truck, and she went to find out the details. She asked him also to find out the details of what was going on. And the marshal explained that the woman hadn't paid her rent for many months, and now she was being evicted from her home. When her driver came to tell her about the woman being evicted, she told him to please go back to the marshal and to find out how much this woman owed. And Also to ask him if he would accept a personal check. The sum that the family owed was about $6,700, and the marshal said that he had no problem accepting a personal check as long as he confirms with the bank that the check is covered. And he said, if you give me a check, everything will go back into the house. The Rebbetzin took out her checkbook. She asked that nothing should be said to this poor woman, and just like that, wrote out a check for the full amount. The driver gave it to the marshal. Marshal gave a phone. The marshal called the bank, and then he told his workers, take everything back into the house. Everything was clear. The Rebbetzin then told her driver to quickly, let's race away. I don't want anyone to realize what just happened, especially the woman. And the driver need to ask the Rebbetzin, like, how did you do such a thing? This is a total stranger. Like, what made you do this? She said, once when I was a young girl, my father took me for a walk in the park and he sat me down on a bench. He started to tell me about the idea of hashgacha pratis, divine providence. Every time he told me when something causes us to deviate from our normal routine, there's a divinely ordained reason for this. Every time we see something unusual, there's a purpose in why we've been shown this sight. Today, at the Rebbetzin, when I saw the detour sign instructing us to deviate from our regular route, we take this road so often, I remembered my father's words and immediately thought to myself, every day we drive by this street and suddenly the street is closed off and we're sent down a different street. What is the purpose of this? How is this connected to me? And then I heard the sound of a woman crying and screaming. I realized that is why we had been sent along this route. And this is just a sneak peek into the countless stories that we know of the kindness and caring of the Rebbetzin. I'm honored to be a shlucha representing the Rebbe and Rebbetzin on a daily basis in helping people out when they're at the lowest. A big part of our shluchas here in Reading, a big part of the work we do here is working with addicts. For many addicts, very often the root of their issues is feeling alone, is feeling misunderstood, is feeling rejected. And part of the solution is knowing that people care about you. This is part of their therapy. Their therapy is done as group therapy, with the idea being that you share and people care. Now, my husband was going to help out in the facility as soon as we heard about it, which is another story. As a Chabad rabbi, he would go and visit with the patients, and he eventually became a certified addictions counselor. And he visits with the patients several times a week. And we also host them weekly for Shabbos dinners and every Jewish holiday too. Now, during COVID, the patients were not allowed to come to us. So we prepared beautiful packages of wrapped up small challah rolls, chicken soup, and a last course in a takeout container of chicken, kugel, rice, whatever it was that week. And we did this on a weekly basis for 2 years until, thank God, they were allowed to come back to us, and we continued to host in our home. And I had people ask me why I bothered providing takeout meals during COVID, because we weren't getting a full Shabbat experience anyway. There's a whole experience of being in someone's home or in your own home, and the lights of the candles and the warmth of family. And like, why are you doing this? Like, what kind of effect do you think it has to give people food? They're not celebrating Shabbat just because you're giving them food. Let's take the guy who came in for treatment. He was having a very hard time adjusting, and he kept threatening to leave. My husband encouraged him to think it through more over the weekend, and after Shabbat, he'd come back and he'd continue talking to him. When he went back after Shabbos, my husband saw a totally different person. What had happened? He said, I opened up the takeout container and I smelled the potato kugel. It just had such an effect on me of what my life was and what my life should be. It brought me back to what my reality is supposed to be, and I decided to give it all I got. Another was reminded of his grandmother's chicken soup, the homemade challahs, taste of tradition, the importance of finding ways to keep our traditions alive. COVID, but we found a way. And quite a few of the patients were very affected just by those meals. There's something beautiful about being with family at a joyful Shabbos table. And for these addicts in general, when they come, it includes the unbelievable factor of people knowingly taking them in and accepting them for who they truly are. Who are they? These are wonderful people who are suffering and in pain from the circumstances of their lives. You take away their addiction, which is how we get to see them because they're already, part of therapy. And you can see and appreciate the essence of who they truly are. Now, as far as their families, they can't see this necessarily in their children, in their spouses, in their family members. They can't see this because they're suffering from the path their loved ones have chosen or have gotten themselves into. But we get to look at them in a different light, and we're able to give them love and encouragement and support. And we just feel so fortunate to see many of these people who have come back home to their families, not only physically back to their families, but also traditionally. Because in the height of addiction, we find very, very often that even people from the most religious homes have unfortunately thrown God out of the window. Addiction doesn't discriminate, and we get people of all backgrounds coming here to get help, down to people sporting streimels. Sometimes we see results and changes in these people right away, and other times we just hope that the experience that we give to these patients will stay with them and help them through life. On that note, this past November, we received this text from Eric. I'm going to read this to you. Good morning, Rabbi. I'm not sure if you remember me. Hold on a second. I'm not sure if you remember me. I attended Karen in 2004. This is the name of the organization, Karen Treatment Centers. So I attended Karen in 2004, and I spent several Shabbat dinners at your house. We had kept in contact for a few years after. However, it has been a while. You've been on my mind lately and wanted to reach out and say a quick hello and tell you that all the life-changing moments that occurred in 2004 at Karen, none compared to the experience of spending time with you and your family on Friday nights. And I thank you for that and hope someday to share another dinner with you. I hope you and your family are well and hope to hear from you sometime. Thank you, Eric. So 20 years later, well, 19 years later, he's still feeling the effect of a Shabbat dinner, and that's what stuck out in his mind. And I have to say that my husband has been asked on a number of occasions why we would take these people into our home. Why are you exposing your kids to these people? And his response is, if it was your son, if it was your father, if it was your brother, wouldn't you want me to welcome them in? And every single time, the slow nodding of acceptance and understanding follows. They get it, but not everyone thinks that way. There are many special stories that we have experienced and are privileged to be involved in over the past 23 years of being here to help and guide and accept these people for who they truly are. One Friday night in 2011, it was Shabbos Hanukkah. The Shabbos candles were waiting to be lit, but first the menorah. There was a significant crowd of patients participating that week, and my husband began to light the menorah. Shouldn't take long, right? However, one candle just wouldn't ignite. My husband moved the shamash around, changing positions, and alas, it just would not catch. And the patient started calling out, you know what? I mean, what's the big deal? Just move ahead to the other candles. Surely God knows you tried. My husband kept trying until finally, yay, he got it. A powerful lesson was learned and discussed at our Shabbos table that night. The wick may have been difficult to light, but the potential was always there. You can never give up on someone's potential. You can never give up in general. Despite the fact that everyone was yelling to just move on, my husband persisted in trying. Of course, halachically, you can't skip a candle anyway. The valuable lesson was learned. We are all wicks with great potential of adding light, lighting up others. Never give up on a beautiful neshama, on a beautiful soul, a light. In life, there's a lot of shouting and yelling, a lot of background noise. We have to shut it out and firmly keep trying to stay on track, never giving up. Doesn't matter who's yelling at us to move on. We have to stay focused. Now, one of the guys who was at our Shabbos table that night constantly reminds us of the story, how it affected him. Matt was in a coma due to substance abuse, and he had hit rock bottom. He came into Karen, to this treatment center, and he had not listed himself as Jewish because, in his words, he was an atheist who hated Judaism and God. He wasn't married to a Jew, and he wanted nothing to do with anything Jewish. When my husband went to visit with the patients one evening, he noticed Matt. He hadn't yet met him, and he went over to say hi. And Matt said, "Leave me alone. I'll have nothing to do with a rabbi. I'm sorry." My husband then told him, "I just want to know how you're feeling. That's it. How are you doing?" And this touched Matt to the core. All the rabbi wants us, he just wants to know how I am. Like, why would he care? And Matt jokes today. The rabbi has a radar. How did you know I was Jewish? How did you sniff me out? Today, Matt puts on tefillin every morning, eats kosher, is a gabbai in the Chabad shul where he lives, all because someone cared. Someone felt that he mattered, that he counts, and that he's important. One father came to bring his daughter in for treatment, and he became extremely emotional. "I'm a businessman. I travel all over. I expect Chabad in Japan. I expected Chabad in China. I expected Chabad in South America. I never expected Chabad to be here in Reading, Pennsylvania, in small town America, when I needed them the most." A powerful quote from one of our alumni. "No drug ever brought me to the height of joy as this Shabbos table did." Another patient grew up in a religious home. He said, "Seeing the love and joy at your table has been life-changing for me. I never had the joy of Shabbos until I came to your table." We know so many people who were destructive, who caused so much havoc and pain to their families, who were hanging by a thread in their marriages, and now, thank God, they're functioning as upright citizens, parents, and family members, because they felt that someone believed in them and cared for them. We've gone to celebrate a number of weddings and other life cycle events with alumni, which is always so joyous and gives us such great encouragement to always remember never to give up on any of them, to always remember that just like the Rebbetzin, it's about being there for others. It's about giving of ourselves and acting with love and kindness to those we encounter. We turned to the Rebbe to ask for his brachos. On more than one occasion, the Rebbe referenced the potency of the Rebbetz's brachos and their ability to affect positive outcomes too. So the Rebbe was once asked about the difference between his and the Rebbetzins brachos. And the Rebbe responded, "For my brachos, you should prepare a proper keli, a receptacle. For the Rebbetzins brachos, one does not need a keli." The Rebbetzin, like Sarah, our matriarch, about whom the Torah says the expression, "Hinei b'ohel," she is in the tent, was always modest and unassuming, keeping away from the public eye. It remains up to each of us to learn from the Rebbetzins' ways. And as the Rebbetzin said, "V'hachai yitin el liboy," and the living shall take to heart, to emulate and perpetuate the ways of the Rebbetzin, and to learn from her Mesiras Nefesh, her self-sacrifice, to continue adding and increasing light to our world.
Wow, Chana, it's so special. So something that I meant to mention earlier is that story that you said about spilling the wine by the Rebbetzins' table. I could just imagine how embarrassing it was for your family, but the Rebbetzin made everyone feel so good. And it's a story that's mentioned in my family. And I think the reason why is because your grandfather was every time he came to New York, he was a guest by my parents' house. And I didn't get to meet him, but it's known, and he wrote a book there's a book written and it mentions how he stayed in my parents' house. And I always knew about stories of the Rebbetzin because your grandfather used to relay the stories over, which was so special. And it's interesting how it brought us together. You know, now you're coming to speak on this class, and your grandfather really, really was a friend of my parents. And it's just amazing how he had such a close knit connection to the Rebbe. And from what my understanding, your grandfather, was he raised Chabad?
My grandfather has his roots in Chabad, but his parents did not raise him as Chabad.
Right. And then he had a full-on connection, and the Rebbe gave him a lot of extra attention. He gave everyone attention, but there was a very close relationship between the two. And it's amazing to see how each one of you, of his offsprings, are spreading light and learned from everything that you saw by the Rebbetzin. And she didn't let a lot of people in. So if you were in, you were very blessed. There was maybe you can count on your fingers how many people got to know the Rebbetzin. That's why there's so few stories, or anyone that does have stories, they don't talk. They keep it private. They feel that she was private and they want to keep it private. And it's amazing what you do. And it's such hashgacha pratis, which is divine providence, what you share tonight. Because just today, someone reached out to me that they had a concern about something that they need with addiction that they're dealing with. And I'm going to connect her with you, because I feel that everything is connected and everything's for a reason. Like, I had no idea what you're talking about. And
Wow, that's amazing.
yes, it is amazing. And we, it's incredible to see how so many years later at your Shabbos table, they were so affected by the little act that you did. But like, you just felt like you're doing probably a regular Shabbos. I mean, obviously more than most because you have so many guests, but you didn't think much of it. But years later, when you got that letter, it's amazing to see. So every action has a reaction, and it's incredible.
And I'm going to point out that's one of many such letters that we have received. I just have the time to choose one and read it, because that one came in the most recently.
I put in the chat box if anyone wants to see a little bit of the rabbi and the Rebbetzin speaking about their amazing shluchas and like their mission, what they're meant to do. We all have our own missions. You can click on the link and open it up to check it out. It's really inspiring what you do, because it's not an easy job. And unfortunately, but everyone has some sort of addictions. You can use it for good, or you could use your addictions for not so good. So if you have an addiction, you can use it to, if you love to, whatever it is, eating, you can do something with kosher. If it's watching screen time, you can use it to watch Torah, and use your addiction for good. And we all can do it. And the bigger the test is in life, the lower we fall, that means the greater that you are. It says in Tanya, the bigger issues you have in your life, and the bigger obstacles and challenges that come your way, it's because you're a much greater person. And for those out there that are going through things, just know that if Hashem put you through it, if he brought you to it, he'll get you through it. And he sent amazing shluchim out there, and amazing messengers that could help. And don't reach out. Don't do it alone, because there's people out there that can help you. And if you know somebody, connect them, because you can really save a life. And to save a life is really saving the world. It's the biggest mitzvah. This is probably the biggest mitzvah and the biggest thing that you can do, because you're saving lives, you're saving worlds, you're saving families. And it's really so incredible that you're out there in a little place, Pennsylvania, that you said that most people don't know. That's probably...
Well, most people know the name from the Monopoly board, the Reading Railroad.
Okay.
But where it is, they don't know.
Right. So I've never been. So it's amazing that you sacrifice, and your husband sacrifices just to be a helping hand and to do, the work of Hashem and the Rebbe, and just to be a light. And it's amazing, and keep going at it and keep helping. And Hashem should bless you with revealed amazing good in your life, for all the good that you do for others. And I personally know stories, and I have a personal encounter with you, how you have such avas yisrael and love for even a stranger, that it's so incredible. And Hashem should just continue blessing you, and everything that you wish upon others, you should get it in tenfolds for yourself and for your family. So
Amen.
thank you for doing this tonight. I know you had a very, very busy week at the Chafei Shvat convention. There were thousands and thousands of women that came together. You can watch it online. It's incredible. The energy in Crown Heights was beyond special. I myself was blessed to have 2 shluchos stay in my home, and it was really amazing to see all the work. And it was amazing for them to have this weekend that they can rejuvenate, to be able to keep going, because what they do, they really should get medals. But really, the person behind it all, this vision, was the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And behind every successful man, there's a woman. And he said himself, like you said, as soon as I heard, everything that we hear in life is for a reason. And when I heard recently what you said about, you have to make a vessel to get the Rebbe's blessing, but my wife, you could just get it directly. Every time I go to the resting place of the Rebbe, I stop before by the Rebbetzin, his wife. It's right across. And I tell her, I say, I'm going to your husband. I'm going to the Rebbe. Please make sure he follows through with what I need. And, I really feel that she hears and she listens, because so far, so good with everything I've been asking. And please, God, will see revealed good for everyone, and all our wishes and dreams will come true, which really the ultimate dream is that Mashiach should come. So we should just not have healing in the world, and we should just have the ultimate redemption, so we don't have to have any pain anymore, and only gain, and only be able to have light in our lives. It's just going to be light and easy and amazing. So thank you, Chana, for sharing your amazing personal stories with us tonight. And we are going to conclude with a video to see a little bit more of who Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka was and is, and how she took care of a different woman from a whole different world that we never even knew existed. But she was so generous and shared her story with us. So we're going to share this amazing gem, this video that Gem put out. So
I answered the phone, and the lady on the other line was a Russian-speaking woman. She said, "Who are you? What is your name?" I said, "My name is Rita." "And where is Frida?" I said, "She's not home. Can I take a message, please?" She said, "Yes, you will, but later. Tell me about yourself. Who are you? Where are you coming from?" Was it difficult to get out? And your family and parents and your siblings, you have plans for them to come. She was so caring.
Tevli Brius, Sachen, wo sie seinen gut für der Zweiten nicht mehr sich. Durch du, was helft mal reis, durch beweisen mal lieblichen Ponne und geben mal nächste Tevel. Und sag noch fragen, was macht und was geht was bei ihm in der Mischproche. Und ausdrücken alle gute Broches und Wünschen, wo das geht noch mehr zu in dem Teil la Shamayim, der Rebester gibt ihm noch mehr Broches.
I said, "Will you please introduce yourself? Because I felt inside something unusual, And she said, "This is Mrs. Schneerson." And I said, "Oh," I said, "I'm sorry." I said, maybe it was a little bit rude of me to give you such a direct question. I mean, who am I speaking with? But it's my honor, and it's a great privilege talking to you. And I told her that my mother came to this country and she was diagnosed with a third stage cancer, and I have 2 small children, and I have to go to work, and that's what I'm doing. The Rebbetzin asked me, what hospital is your mother in? That you think you need more help, assistance, what can I do for you? What can I do for your family? I asked, to give a bracha to my mother and my children. And she said, send them to yeshiva and everything. I said, yes. And as far as your mother, she said, everything will be all right. And she gave me a bracha. My mom lived another 24 years after that. 24 years after she was diagnosed and operated of terminal cancer. She was a Yiddish mama, and that's what you felt with each word, each expression, the caring and the loving person.
בזכות נושם צדקוני שבדרנו זה, ובפרט הזינו וסום זכי גרן, הכמה וכמה מבני ישראל לקרויס על שמון, und sie beweisen ein lebendigen Beispiel mit lebendigen Nishomes und lebendigen Gufen und kein Hefzig, weil diese werden nicht schanig in ihrer Ruhe und leht ihre Anweisungen und leht ihre Beispiel.
Wow, thanks for sharing. I just want to say that the Rebbetzin, someone came to her home and innocently asked, where are your children? They didn't see any children. And she said, my children are in 770. My children are the Chassidim. She wasn't merited to have her own children, but she very much felt that each and every one of us that connects to the Rebbe and that considers himself a Chassid is her children. And we are going to continue her legacy with all the beautiful things that she did in life. You don't have to make a lot of noise to make a difference. And we see that with our Rebbetzin. She was so quiet. If anyone found out who she was, she stopped shopping at their store. She didn't want any fanfare, anything like that. She was Mrs. Schneerson. She was very unassuming, and it's really, really special. Another person was interviewed, and I actually interviewed her myself for a different project I'm working on. She was saying how Mrs. Kogel, she was saying how she was very merited to know the Rebbetzin as well, because the Rebbetzin used to call her up and she was her hairdresser. And she said she treated her with the utmost respect. And she didn't look at her just as a hairdresser. She looked at her as a friend, and she gave her words of affirmation all the time and encouragement to keep doing what she was doing. And she said that she wanted her wig to be perfect and beautiful. And she got the most practice on 2 people. She said, the Rebbetzin and my grandmother, Riva Minkowitz. They were both very, very particular and wanted to look beautiful. And it was just very special to hear it from her mouth, because not many people merited to see her and meet her. And I hope very soon we'll be able to meet her with the coming of Mashiach and thank her for all that she gave us. She gave us the Rebbe, and because of that, we're all here. And because of that, there's addiction centers in the world. And because of that, there's Torah classes happening in Miami. And because of that, there's just C-Teen, and there's YJP, Young Jewish Professionals, and there's the JLI. JLI is the Jewish Learning Institute that is really amazing, that they do amazing courses and classes and trips and for Jewish people around the world. And then we have just amazing people out there, YY Jacobson, Simon Jacobson. I'm not going to name all of them, but so many people, and everyone really likes them. And the reason why they do is because they're all following the same teachings, and they have everyone's basically the formula that they're using that's working. We're all following the same formula. It's the Rebbe, and it's his insight, and he gave us so much of him. And really, Karas Atayv, being thankful is so important. And I want to publicly say thank you to the Rebbetzin for giving us your husband. How many of us love when our husbands leave our home, when they have to go help? My husband asked me tonight if I would want him to volunteer to be Hatzalah. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready. He's already out of the house like 20, so often helping. And I'm very proud of him helping. But imagine the Rebbetzin, this is on such a smaller scale. It was every single night. He came home every day for a few minutes, had coffee every day. He had coffee with the Rebbetzin, and then she would wait up for him, and he would come home after midnight, 3 a.m., and leave super early in the morning. And in that time, he found time to visit his mom every day and sat with her and made it like he had all the time in the world. And anyone that had a private audience with him, he made them feel like they were the most important person. And we should all get all the blessings, and may we be zocha to see them with the coming of Mashiach now. Thank you again, Chana. Thank you everyone for joining. For those that are tuning in after the class, I apologize if you weren't able to get on, but we will see you. We'll share the recording with you. This is a class we do weekly, so reach out if you want to join. And this year is a Hakel year. We had 56 ladies live on the class tonight, and that's 56 merits of learning Torah, 56 people that will take the stories with them and bring them into your home, in your own homes, in your lives, and share it with the world, because sharing is caring. And just be the reason someone smiles today. It's so easy. So I am going to say goodnight. And if